Hello and welcome to another video. So we're taking a look at what not what I have named, but what Aya has named, Aya Haven. Of course, if you don't know Aya of the Shadownexus, then I don't know what rock you're living under, but you probably should head over to the Shadownexus and find out. So my variation of his deck is slightly different, mainly based on not having certain cards and trying to tech a little better for the current state of the game, at least the day I was playing this. So I am including double Star Torrent. I found they're fairly effective. I did keep the one Ancient Lion just because that is good at dealing with Shadow, but I like the Star Torrents as well, especially because you can combo the proc with God Scale, Gemstone, Globe, anything like that. And at 2, I haven't seen it too much, but enough that I actually quite enjoyed it. I'm also running a single Heavenly Knight just because I did only craft one, because I don't quite have the vials to craft a second one. Also double Dark Janine. I will leave a link to Aya's version of this deck in the description, probably above mine, so you guys can check that out. I would recommend that over this one personally, if you have the cards to do it. Mine is just more budget orientated, I would say, for me, because of what I actually already have and what I can run. I am running a single Heavenly Aegis because either already pulls those. You can also use either to pull the Heavenly Knight, which is basically a 3 damage storm straight off the bat, which is really nice if you wanted to use it as a closer. Unfortunately, I didn't really get to use it in that way, but it would have been nice to do that. Also the triple Bahamut, because it is a control orientated deck and you want that in these sort of decks. So we've got some nice variations of decks to verse, so we'll get right into that and check it out. Okay, and first up here we're fighting another Haven deck. Haven has become reasonably popular the day of making this video, which is, I think, yeah, yesterday, I believe it will be, when this comes out, because this will be the first video from my next set of ones that I usually make. I usually like to make 3 in a row, so you guys have some consistent content without me having to, you know, burn out every single day, and I can work on other stuff as well. So expect this one. I've got an unlimited video, should be coming out the same day. Look forward to that as well. That might actually come out before this, so go back and watch that if you haven't. So starting off, Globe, perfect 1-drop, about everything you want in this deck. Getting Globe, getting those gemstones, being able to play them out, combo them off, do whatever you can. I found getting Gemstone out turn 2 nearly always perfect, as long as you already have something on board, even if it is just a Globe. Playing Snow White is also quite valuable. So we do get another Globe and another Gemstone to play for this turn overall. Could have played the Gemstone first, but there's nothing that you're going to pull that you wouldn't have played anyway. And next turn is actually perfect. With Gemstone proccing itself, I can easily play it, I can evolve it if I choose to, but this Priest draw is actually even better. Being able to evolve the Priest, kill off the Snow White with no repercussions at all. We get another turtle, so in total, turn 4, we've got a solid board. I mean, we've got 15 health and 10 damage on board turn 4. Definitely not an easy thing to deal with, and if we happen to have had Summon Terminal in this deck, which we don't, but it could be something to consider running, you could very easily deal 15 damage in a single turn. So that's the new John. I'm running the Dark John just because I don't have the new one. The new one is better. 3 damage is much better than 2 as an AoE, even though it is a turn later, and you also have the heal, which is perfect for this kind of deck. Ancient Lion Spirit, you see that it is quite useful, especially with dealing with these sorts of boards where you have double Bane Snakes. Also great against Shadow. Not so good against Dragon, but you have other cards to kind of deal with that. So they do get their own Turtle. They get their own Priest. I mean, once they pick off this board, they're going to get rid of that 4-3. They're going to be able to clear one of these two, most likely the Priest because the damage is higher. And Black Inscripture. Kind of expected that. But with my hand, I should be able to directly counter this, remove them from the board, do whatever I need to going into the next turn. Dark John, perfect draw, gets rid of the 4-1, allows me to evolve it. I don't like using the evolve points here. I would have rather have used them on an Aegis maybe, but this just seemed better. I could have got rid of the 5-3. 7 damage 2 face though when they're on 13 is way too valuable. Not something you want to be passing up. So we do get to see their own Heavenly Knight. I mean, we're literally going to be able to put them to 1 because Tribunal is going to get rid of this very, very easily. And Pure Hearted, of course. Play it out when you can. Get those draws. And Aether sets up for Aegis perfectly. But they concede anyway. I mean, 1 health versus 19 when I've got a board and you don't. Really hard to deal with. Okay, next up we're versing Sword. Sword is not that popular. I would even say not that good. I would put it definitely in the lower set of decks that you could be playing. Probably near Blood, somewhere there. Like I said, I don't really have a personal tier list, and I don't really like the first week tier list, so I'd much rather wait until we have a full weeks of playing at least before I even consider, you know, looking at what could be top tier and what couldn't be top tier. Of course, you do have a general idea on day-per-day basis on what is good and what isn't good. So, I mean, day by day, Shadow and Dragon, you can tell, are definitely strong. They're definitely probably the top 2. Haven and Portal are slotting in there somewhere as well, because they are quite good, along with Rune. Rune having its burn variations are still doing quite well as an overall deck. And of course, Unlimited has a whole different range of decks when it comes to things like Forest being absolutely crazy, which is why I am going to start incorporating Unlimited videos as well. So hopefully I can push out heaps of that content while also working on the best of series for Shadow Nexus and a few other videos per week. It's going to be a very full schedule coming up. Lux Solar Lancer, yeah, kind of expected. We pretty much started with a very similar hand to last time, which is a pretty ideal hand, especially when you have Priest on 4 every time. I mean, Priest into double Turtle is just an amazing way to play up your turn. Especially against something like Sword here, where you can deal with that 2-3 and 2-2 really effectively. Only leaving up the Lux Solar, even though I don't really like leaving it up. Not like this. That's right. Definitely not like this. Luminous Mage. Yeah, I can settle for Luminous Mage. Okay, so we've still got a few good things here. I mean, Godscale is actually going to be pretty reasonable later on, especially when we can actually have it proc later. Star Torrent, as you saw there, actually does come in handy quite nicely, especially if you can follow it, have it followed up by a Dark John, or even prior to a Dark John. It can actually deal with quite decent boards. But as I said, Sword isn't the hardest thing to beat. It's just interesting to see Sword on ladder at the moment. And I mean, Judge of Retribution removes that really nicely. Draws a card. I really love Judge. I'm glad that it can come back in this meta. So we still have an evolve point. I like going second with this deck in particular. Not so much against Shadow, but in general it's normally quite nice. But rolling the Incorruptible really slows down my pressure. I mean, it's not the hardest thing to deal with, but it's definitely not the easiest thing. We do have a pretty decent hand, which helps a lot. Black Inscription was pretty perfect draw. That'll Tribunal would have been ideal to deal with that, without having to waste an Evo point or ram this 3/5 Turtle that I'd like to keep. And since we can only deal, I think, 4 damage max, there was no point really evolving the Turtle and wasting it. I'd rather save it and use it for later. Fortunately, Lancer of Tempest plus Barbaros, absolute pain. Especially since Barbaros will resummon it, so, like, not resummon, but go back to the hand. Making my life difficult, but Star Torrent does deal with this. And with Globe and stuff as well, it would have worked out nicely. I wish I had have actually played Globe first, but I think at the time I was mainly prioritizing those Snow Whites, because I know that even if they do a full board clear, I'm still going to be able to deal 4 damage right to the face, which is just better, I think, than worrying about getting Globe out now. So we do see the Barbaros again, and of course you're going to play it. I mean, who wouldn't? Lancer of Tempest, that's why I wanted to stock these Snow Whites, because when they do attack, I am going to get both my Snow Whites out. Which, if I had have drawn into either of White Wing or into the Heavenly Knight in general, I would have actually won. Unfortunately, I didn't. So I do take the 50-50 here. It doesn't matter what it hits. I can use a Snow White to trade, or I can evolve trade either way. It was really no concern to me which way I did this.
The real battle begins.
But I think, yeah, pushing the 4 damage to face is just better. Especially since Bahamut could drop next turn and basically reset their whole game. They're not going to really kill me from the next turn. They don't have an evolve point. Their Albert can only deal 6 at best if they have that played. Nothing really was a big threat. I mean, here, that's a little bit of a pain to deal with. I could just jam Bahamut into the next turn if I want to. Especially since they did clear. Bahamut would actually have been crazy good, but taking the 50-50 for lethal was exactly what I wanted to go for, so that's exactly what I did. Luckily it did pay off. It was a risk, but it paid off. Sometimes you just got to risk it to reward. And last but not least, Rune. As I mentioned earlier, Rune is definitely one of the top contenders for my top list, I guess. So, Heavenly Knight, Pure-Hearted Singer, Dark John. I think dumping Heavenly Knight, dumping the Dark is good. Keeping the Pure-Hearted just for that extra draw. And unfortunately we do draw into pretty garbage cards for our intro into the game. Especially since most Rune decks are burn. So being able to deal with those is very important in the early game. Luckily, our 2 first draws on turn 2, perfect. Perfect draws on our opening. Being able to get Snow White and Black in Scripture, yep. Just couldn't go wrong with that at all. We do need to put pressure down though, so being able to deal with everything is going to be extremely important to me. I mean, we can deal with this whole board now, which I actually like quite a lot with Black in Scripture. Especially now that we've drawn Priest as well. It actually makes me consider other options. I mean, the Pure-Hearted is still pretty solid, the Black in Scripture is definitely solid. I think doing this was better just because if they do play, say, Golem, I could use Priest to get rid of it pretty quickly. Which they do actually play Golem. Dealing 3 to face, which is what you want to do as Rune, pushing as much as you can to face without worrying about the board. Unfortunately for them, I do have Tribunal, I've got Priest, I've got Judge. I honestly probably should have kept the Tribunal for turn 6 because dealing with an evolved follower is a lot harder, or even just as a standard 4-4, dealing with that Levi isn't that easy when you have Judge and Priest. It does mean you're basically wasting the evolve. So we don't quite have a turn 5 yet. Pure-Hearted looks to be the only good option. Especially now that we've drawn the Gemstone Tortoise card. I can take advantage of Snow White to combo off that quite nicely in the next turn. And I can actually draw an extra card, so that's what I really like about this. Being able to draw cards like that is really good. Getting Heavenly Argus, not so good.
The name's Levi, don't forget.
Levi. This is where I run into the problem of not being able to deal with it effectively, because 4 health is just hard to deal with unless you do have something really, really solid to hit the board with. And we lose the advantage on the gemstone here, which really disappointed me. I mean, I can still gemstone and play the priest and ram the priest, but it's basically wasting most of this turn. The only bonus is Tribunal next turn is really going to hurt them. I mean, not being able to play any big threat next turn because Tribunal would clear it makes the turn a little more clunky, which is what I like quite a lot. They do push this Master Mage though. They're really pushing that damage. But I don't have many options left, so we've seen double Levi, so I think Cyclone is safe to play. And Halo Golem, another 3 damage to my face. At least this time I can deal with both of these really easily. I mean, Dark plus Blacken clears the board, boosts both my followers. With an Evolve on top of that, I can push a full 11 damage to this board, which should be more than enough to pretty much lock down the game. There is the chance that next turn they could kill me with some kind of combo, which, looking at what they end up playing here, they go straight for that Wizardess, trying to get those, you know, Chain Lightning cards, I think. Yeah, Chain Lightning. If they got 2 of those, it would have been lethal. Luckily for me, they didn't, which allowed me to go for the game here with that. So, as I mentioned at the start of the video, this is Aya's Haven. I guess that's the only way I could name it. I played the deck, I enjoyed it. I had a lot more success after my first 3 games. I had about 3 losses, 3 wins, so 50-50 with this deck so far. Most of my losses were to Shadow, mainly because they just had Aisha exactly when they needed it. Otherwise, I was dominating most of the game, except for the few bits of ping they could get in, which was just enough usually to kill me. So Shadow games were pretty close overall. Other than that, if you are running Aya's version, I reckon you'll have a much better matchup against Shadow than I currently am. The only thing I may recommend would be considering Star Torrent, but if you are running other cards anyway, it probably isn't that necessary, I guess. But hopefully you enjoyed the video, hit the like button and subscribe. Both deck lists will be in the description below, and I will see you next time. Bye.